Hello, welcome to APS to Azure Synapse Migration Module 5 video. This module is to put all things together and actually migrate our APS databases into Azure Synapse dedicated SQL pool. So the idea is that we can now execute all previously generated scripts in a sequence. At the end, we should have all objects created in Azure Synapse and tables should be populated with data. This module is also implemented as a PowerShell script. The script can use a single or multiple configuration files. Detailed description of the configuration file structure is provided in GitHub repository. As for the other modules, we can create the configuration files manually, but also we can use a helper PowerShell script, which generates main configuration files using data from previously generated DDL scripts. Helper script also uses its own configuration file, which is much simpler. You can find the file structure here in GitHub repository. Let's recreate main configuration files by running this helper PowerShell script. I switch to Windows Explorer. My current folder is module 5.DeployScriptsToSynapse. And you can see multiple generated configuration files. So these are files which we will be regenerating. So before running helper script, I'm going to delete these files. I switch to Windows PowerShell, change current folder to module 5, and I run helper script. I confirm default prompts, and it's completed. Switching back to Windows Explorer, now we have main configuration files which are regenerated by helper script. There are two sets of configuration files here, one per database. So this set of files is for AdventureWorks DW database, and this set of files is for Contoso DW database. Let's look at configuration files for AdventureWorks DW database. First one is Synapse tables generated file. This file drives creating tables in Azure Synapse. Next one is Synapse views generated. And this file drives creating views in Azure Synapse. There are also other files which drives creating stored procedures, functions, indexes, rows, and users. There are also files which drive data export and data import. First one is APS export generated. This file drives data export from APS. Basically, it drives execution of create external table as select commands. Next one is Synapse copy generated. This file drives data import into Azure Synapse using copy into command. Synapse ext tables generated. This file basically drives creating external tables in Azure Synapse to be used by Polybase when importing data. And finally, Synapse import generated. This file drives data import into Azure Synapse using Polybase. Before running these scripts, let's briefly check our environment. I switch to Azure Data Studio. This is my connection to APS appliance. I switch to AdventureWorks DW database and I execute several test queries. So we have only DBO schema and ASB schema, which we use to load test data. And there are our standard set of user tables. No other objects. Now I switch to Azure Data Explorer. This is my storage account, which I will be using for data export and import. And there is nothing here. I switch back to Azure Data Studio. This is my connection to Synapse database. Let's execute these test queries. And again, there is nothing here. There is only built-in DBO schema and no objects found. So my environment is pretty clean and ready for the migration. One more prerequisite is required. As we will be using Polybase for data export and data import, we will need master key, database scoped credential, external data source, and external file format objects from both APS and Synapse end. For this purpose, we can use SQL script create external objects, which is available in extras folder in GitHub repository. I have already put my own password, my own storage account name, my storage account key, and the name of the container. Of course, you will need to use your own storage account and put respective values to the template script. So I'm going to run this script both at Synapse and APS side. Now I'm connected to Synapse EDW database, so I simply run the script. And it is successfully completed. Now I change connection to my demo APS. I change current database to AdventureWorks DW. You need to run the script for every database in scope of your migration. And I execute this script. Also successfully completed. And I change connection to Contosa DW database. And again, execute the script. Also successfully completed. Now we're fully ready to run Module 5 script and perform migration. First, we will use APS export configuration file to perform data export from APS. I copy the name of the file. I will need it later. Now I switch to Windows PowerShell and I start the script. I paste my configuration file. Here I need what was copied previously. Remember, I need to specify file name including file extension. I provide connectivity information to my APS appliance, SQL authentication, username, and password. And I keep other values as default. Now we're fully ready to run Module 5 script and perform migration. First, we will use APS export configuration file to perform data export from APS. I copy the name of the file. I will need it later. Now I switch to Windows PowerShell and I start the script. I paste my configuration file. Here I need what was copied previously. Remember, I need to specify file name including file extension. I provide connectivity information to my APS appliance, SQL authentication, username, and password. And I keep other values as default. Data export for AdventureWorks DW database is completed. Now I'm going to run the same, but for Contosa DW database. So I copy the name of configuration file APS export for Contosa DW database, and I run the same script. I use just copied configuration file name. I add file extension. I provide connectivity information, SQL authentication, username, password, and I keep other values as default. The script execution is completed. So basically, we exported data from two APS databases, AdventureWorks DW and Contoso DW. Let's check our storage account. I switch to Azure Storage Explorer, refresh, and here we can see two folders for our AdventureWorks DW and Contoso DW databases. Under these folders, we can find subfolders for each and every table from source databases. And in every folder, we can find flat files with data exported from respective table. Next, I'm going to create all other database objects in Azure Synapse, such as views, storage procedures, functions, indexes, roles, and users, except for data import, which we will discuss later. Now we have created all database objects in Azure Synapse. So let's switch to Azure Data Studio and check. This is my connection to Azure Synapse. And we can see that there are also new tables created in CSO schema. We can find even that CSO.DimAccount table has a secondary index, ix_DimAccount, and table CSO.FactStrategyPlan has some statistics migrated. There are also several views and storage procedures in AW schema. So we can conclude that all database objects are successfully migrated. Now it's time to import data into our target Azure Synapse database. There are two possible ways to import data, Polybase and copy into. Let's first see how Polybase works. To import data using Polybase, we will need to create external tables like this. And then we will need to run insert into query like this. So basically, we declare external table which points to Azure Blob Storage, and then we run insert select from that external table. We already have all such queries generated previously and ready for execution. I switch to Windows Explorer, copy the name of Synapse X tables generated configuration file for AdventureWorks DW database. I switch to Windows PowerShell and I run the script. I paste configuration file name, enter credentials, and I keep other values as default. The script is creating external tables. The script execution is completed, so we have created external tables. Now it's time to insert data into our target tables. I switch to Windows Explorer and I copy the name of Synapse import generated configuration file. Switch to Windows PowerShell, run the script. I paste configuration file name, enter credentials, and I keep other values as default. It's taken a bit longer because it actually loading data into target tables. Please note that target tables are not truncated, so you can run the same script multiple times and your data might be duplicated. So just be careful with that. So the script execution is completed, and now it's time to repeat the same steps for Contoso DW database. Now, when we have imported data into our target tables, let's check the content of the tables. I switch to Azure Data Studio and run sample queries to check dim account table. We can clearly see that data was successfully imported, and there are two different dim account tables in AW schema and CSO schema respectively. And each table contains its own data set. Before running data import using copy into commands, let's truncate all tables so we avoid data duplication. I run the script which contains truncate table statements for every single user table, and it's done. So all tables should be empty now. I quickly check dim account tables, and we can see that both tables are empty. Now I switch to Windows Explorer and I copy Synapse copy generated configuration file name. I switch to Windows PowerShell and I run the PowerShell script. Paste the configuration file name, credentials, and I keep other values as default. The script is now running copy into commands to import data for AdventureWorks DW tables into Azure Synapse, of course. It is completed, and now it's time to repeat the same steps for Contoso DW database. Great, it's completed. So now we can check data in our Synapse database. I switch to Azure Data Studio and I run my sample queries. Brilliant, we have the same data. So you can use Polybase or copy into to import data into Azure Synapse. I would recommend using copy into because it has lower requirements. We have confirmed successful data import into Azure Synapse. Now let's check a few code objects. Let's select from View Product Categories. Well, it works and it returns some records. Let's use another view, Top 3 Quotas. It works too. Now let's run a storage procedure which used to replicate temporary table in APS. It works, no errors. Great. Let's quickly check the code of this storage procedure. Well, now temporary table uses round-robin distribution, which is definitely supported in Azure Synapse. We have successfully completed the migration of AdventureWorks DW and Contoso DW databases, including both database objects and data, into Azure Synapse. And this concludes Module 5 video. Thank you for watching and see you in the final video.